This morning, as I often do, I was watching The Right Stuff. One of the questions that came up was whether or not Twitter was cracking down hard enough on abuse. Richard Madeley, who is presenting instead of Matthew Wright today, had this to say.
I don't see why, and I've had discussions actually with Twitter about this in the past, and I've never really had a good answer to this. I don't understand why, when you log on to Twitter, you don't have to give proof of residence. Absolutely justifiable proof of residence, so that if you do send a death threat or something like that, Twitter can get straight back to the source, find out where you live, and the police can call.
Later on, he asked a caller if they agreed with him that people on Twitter should be identifiable as part of being allowed on Twitter.
Do you agree or disagree with me that people who, just by going on Twitter, you should actually be accountable, you should be identifiable?
This made me think about my own answer to this question. If you know anything about me, you'd probably guess that my answer would be no, and you would be correct. The key here lies in the word should. They could, and I wouldn't protest it, but I would stop using Twitter. I believe it should not be imperative for any social media site to take people's information like that. They could if they wished to, but there would be a fundamentally different service to a site that didn't. Now, you may be aware that I am not anonymous. I am Tim Morrison. My other account is Mr. Strings or @OmniUke. People know who I am, and you could easily find information about me. Why do I object to this being mandatory? Why do I object to having information like that out there, or given to a website being mandatory? Fundamentally, I consider remaining anonymous to be a safety choice. When you choose to no longer be anonymous, you are choosing to give up some of the protections that being anonymous grants you. The most obvious of which being people not knowing who you are. If you give a website your information, you have to trust whoever's there with that information not to do anything with it. If your identity is publicly displayed, you have to trust the entirety of the public who are able to see that to not do anything with that information. You have to be careful about the opinions you share, because the response, rather than being disagreement or disproving your argument, can be to attack you personally, to go to your work and try and get you fired, or to threaten you, because that's actually what enables threats, not anonymity. If you don't know who someone is, how do you threaten them? You're shouting into a black hole. To not be anonymous is a measured risk. People will know who you are, but then the upside is also that people will know who you are. If you're a public figure using your own name and you rely on being known for your career, you will want to use your own name. The benefits outweigh the risks so much that you might not even consider the risks. You're already known, and people can threaten you and do all sorts of stuff without you being known on social media. To say people must be identifiable on social media is to say you can either use social media and be forced into being effectively a public figure, or use no social media. I would have no problem with such a service that requires that, but not all services should be forced to do that as some sort of moral or ethical imperative. The counterpoint to this is, of course, that anonymous people are hard to catch, that they can get away with things without being caught, do illegal things. The argument is that, while this allows them to share opinions that don't hurt anyone that they wouldn't be able to share if they weren't anonymous, it also allows them to do things like send death threats. For the most part, I believe anonymous death threats should be ignored. I think they should be treated about the same as if an anonymous person says they are a millionaire. Unless there's something attached to that suggests this is accurate, you shouldn't care. Who said it? No one. The message likely exists purely to get your reaction. Of course, I'm not saying not to report these things, but I think most of the inaction in dealing with these threats is just out of the fact that they are not serious. They are not worth wasting anyone's time going after. When they contain information that means this is a real threat, this is dangerous, I believe they can be looked into, you can be protected, and the people who do it can be found. To be frank, threatening you or even killing you does not require anonymity on social media. Winding someone up with little effort does require that. Perhaps an alternative solution would be, instead of providing their personal information, adults signing up to Twitter should be forced to tick a little box that says they understand the value of anonymity in terms of freedom of speech and safety, and that they understand risks come from not being anonymous. But, as always, that's just another one of my harmful opinions.